So I've done pulled noodles with you guys before, but this is a Uyghur style method, and it's super neat, super unique, and it also adds to our Uyghur recipe series. So here goes. So this recipe starts off with a very basic dough, and that is 2 cups of all-purpose flour along with a half a cup of water and then a generous pinch of salt. And like the usual, I do it with chopsticks first so that things don't get messy. And then once the dough kind of gets flaky, I will use my hands and knead that. And depending on your environment, you're going to find that you may need a little bit more water or maybe a little bit more flour. But just bring the dough together and then knead it for right around 5 to 6 minutes until it sort of resembles a smooth ball of dough. So put a cloth over this so that it doesn't dry out and let it rest for an hour so that it's nice and relaxed for us to stretch out. So you want to make sure that everything is nice and oiled. So we're talking work surface, and I have a pan over to the side because otherwise it becomes a real sticky mess, and the oil actually helps the dough stretch out. So what I would call this is stretch round 1. You want to just divide it into 3 pieces, and the goal is to get this log into about the thickness of udon noodles, so kind of pretty thick. I added some extra oil just to aid the process, but the method is really to work on one log, and then if you feel like it's not stretching, it's going to tear, it's not, really ready to stretch yet, move on to the next log. And then by the time you're done with all of the logs, you can go back to the original one and then give it a nice stretch out again. So I think this is one of the unique bits of the Uyghur method. They essentially turn it into this noodle spiral, and it's nice that we divided it into parts of 3 because noodles that are too long will get very difficult to handle later. And because the surface, the oiled surface, is quite slick, sometimes it is harder to roll it with your hands and turn it into a log. So kind of stretching it a little bit and then forming it in the palms of your hands will help with that. So you want to cover this dough and let it rest for 15 to 20 minutes. That way the dough will relax one more time and it will prepare us for essentially the second stretching. So for this one, go gentle with it because we're going to stretch this dough out one more time. So don't get it too thin because there is that ability too. You just want to gently tug, gently pull on it so that it is a little bit thinner than what it is now. So I'm just gonna give a small tip, error of my ways, but that pile that I'm making there got quite sticky. What I would recommend is because we divided it into 3 chunks, you want to just pile them into 3 and not really have that whole mound there because the weight of that dough kind of made it one big blob. And then there is a technique to this one, and it's kind of like coiling wire, I guess. And it's a little bit like making figure eights, but it does take some time. And then after you get both of them onto your hands, you just want to slap it a couple of times. The more you slap it, the thinner that the noodles will get. So that is really up to you. And it might seem like a sticky mess right now, but if you've oiled each of the pieces enough, once it hits the hot water, it should separate just fine. So now you want a pot of boiling water going, as well as a bowl of ice water to put the noodles in afterwards. And there's a technique behind this one as well. You want to put the noodles in, make sure to stir them around really quickly so that they don't stick to one another. And you want to bring it up to a first boil. And then because the noodles are fairly thick, you want to put in about a half a cup of room temperature water once it boils to bring that temperature back down. And then once the water boils again, the noodles should be good, but I've heard some people do this for a third time. I'd say the test is to just take a piece of noodle and then try it out. And if it's to the texture that you like, if it's fully cooked in the middle, then you're really good to go. So I just topped it off with some soy curls, some peppers, as well as some garlic. But y'all can do whatever you want. It's a nice, thick, chewy noodle, so there's some good texture there. Anyways, I hope you all have enjoyed that recipe, and be sure to check out the Uyghur dumpling recipe as well. It's definitely a people with a lot of history and a lot of culture and really worth looking into. As usual, if you want to see more recipes like this, remember to hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you guys all again next time. Bye!